Hi everyone, my name is Jacqueline Fu. This is the look that I created for Rachel Jones and Fashion Art Toronto for the Suhanya Lingum design runway show. We went for a super soft and feminine look with a pop of shimmer on the lids, a little liner, and neutral cheeks and lips. I hope that you enjoy the video, and let's get into it. So the look we're doing for today's show is something really soft and feminine. So you just want to make sure that your skin is cleansed, toned, and hydrated. So I just used a hydrating serum and my daily moisturizer. Something that'll keep your skin super supple and soft will do. And the next thing we're going to do together is prep our lips before we work on the rest of the face. So you can use sugar and coconut oil or sugar and olive oil. If you have a sugar scrub for your lips, that's great. If not, then you can use a soft toothbrush. I just have this one specifically for my lips, but you just want to wet the tip with some warm water just to make sure that the bristles aren't too harsh, and you're just going to run it over your lips. So you just want to do circular motions along the top and bottom, and let's do that. And also don't be afraid to go over your lip line, because a lot of times when you have dry skin, it's accumulated over your lip line and also on the base of your lips. And once you feel like you're done, just have a tissue handy and dab off any excess moisture on your lips. And you can go in with a lip balm. I just have Laneige lip mask here. This is the apple lime, or you can use a lip oil just to hydrate your lips for the time being. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the lip balm and hydrate my lips. And that's our lips done for now. So the next thing I'm going to do is my brows. I'm going to quickly do this kind of speeding through it, so just fill them in. You don't want them to be too filled in because we are going for a super soft and feminine look. So I'm just going to fill in any sparse areas, kind of enhance my little bit of an arch. I kind of like my brows to be a tiny bit straighter, but you can see that I have sparse areas here, so I'm just going to fill that in, and then we will move on to the eye look. And I'm just using the NYX Micro Brow Pencil. This is in the shade Black. And just using a super light hand, enhancing my natural shape. And if you don't have a brow pencil, you can use brow powder, brow pomade. Just make sure that you're not going too harsh. And that's pretty much it for brows. I'm also going to throw in a little bit of a brow fiber brow gel. It's a colored brow gel. This is from Benefit. This is Give Me Brow in shade 5. And I'm just going to quickly run that through my brows. Oops. Just to give a more soft feel, you can brush your hair up in a upwards motion. You can kind of pull them forward like this a little bit. Brows definitely take the longest in my opinion because you want them to frame your face well. And then I'm just going to finish that off with a bit of a brow gel. This is also Benefit, the 24-hour brow setter. And that just gives your brows an all-day hold, which we need because we're not sure what the weather is going to be like on the day of the show, and we want everything to be good. Okay, brows are done. For this next bit, we're just going to prep our eyes to do our soft eye look. And I'm just going to use my foundation that I'm going to be using on my skin later as my eye prep. You can use a concealer, or you can use eye primer. You can also just use your base makeup. This is the Sephora Best Skin Ever Longwear Foundation. And in the shade 17.5 for reference is my shade. And I'm just going to take a tiny little bit on my brush And I also have a clear palette here that I like to dab off any excess product. And I'm just going to brush that over my eyelid. And this also helps with shaping your brows a little bit in case you have a little bit of excess product on the bottom. Okay, so it doesn't give a lot of coverage, but we're not really looking for that. You want it to be your skin tone, but just a little bit better, because you want it to be a soft, smooth canvas for our eyeshadow. So what you're gonna do now is take a little bit of a loose powder or just a really neutral colored eyeshadow, and I'm just gonna do a quick set on my eyelid just to make sure that any eyeshadow that we put on top will be seamless and blend seamlessly and it doesn't look patchy. So I'm just using a loose powder. This just has a netting to protect it, and just any fluffy brush. This one's from Sigma. The numbers definitely have rubbed off, but it was part of a, I think, bunny collection. Okay, so I filmed the whole next bit, but unfortunately there was no sound. But all I did was take a neutral shade to my crease and just lightly buffed it to define my eye crease line. So I did a little bit of the Becca shadow, this one here. You don't want something that's overly warm or overly cool, so something within the neutral to your skin tone family is great. I mixed it with a little bit of this MAC Titia tint, and any eyeshadow is great in the neutral family. So if you have something that you could mix to give yourself more of a neutral shadow, that's great. If not, just use what you have. And don't go too heavy-handed because you would always add more. So always tap in your eyeshadow and tap off any excess. And then you kind of want to just not push really hard and just do tapping and swiping motions. So you can see that there's a little bit more definition to my eyes. And now we're going to do the top liquid liner. But before we do that, we're just going to quickly add a little pop of shimmer on the eyelid. You can use any highlighter you have, any illuminator, any eyeshadow. I'm just using a highlighter I have here. This is the Becca Skin Perfector in the shade Champagne Pop. I love this shade. And I just take a little bit on my ring finger and I just tap that on my lid. You can see it just adds a nice little pop of shimmer, and it just gives it a little bit more of a romantic feel. And it also ties together with the crease color that we put on. So again, ring finger. And keep this close because we're going to do a little bit of our inner corner after we're done our base. So next, you just want to take a liquid liner or a pencil liner or a gel liner. Any liner will do, but we're just going to do a really thin line along our top lash line. And I'm just going to use a handheld mirror. So I'm just going to use my Becca powder that I was just using just for a little bit closer precision. So we're not going for a big cat eye or a really big, rounded shape. We just want to simply pull out a little tiny bit at the end of our eyes just to give the eyes more of an elongated shape to make the eyes more defined, and it gives it a really romantic feel. So I'm just going to quickly line the top just super thin. Okay, so you can see that I just did the top just to round it, and it gives a lot of definition to my lash line, especially because I don't naturally have lots of lashes. So what we're going to do now is you're going to look at the bottom lash line and look at where that aligns and where it meets your top lash line. And you just want to do a tiny little flick outwards. That's it. You can hardly see it. That's the point. Now I'm just going to connect it with my top lash line. You can see that it's not a definite cat eye, and it also doesn't bring my eye shape down. So I'm just going to repeat the same process on my other eye. So again, on this side, I just did the top, and now we're just going to do a tiny little flick. You can see, tiny little flick, and now I'm just going to connect it to the top. See? Both sides. Done. A little bit more on this side. You can see how it makes my eyes look a little bit longer and more tapered in the ends. And now we're going to go in and you're going to give your lashes a good curl. So I just have a Shu Uemura eyelash curler, and I go from the base of my lashes and I do a couple stamps out towards the end. And if you find the liner that you did is a little bit too harsh, you can take a an angled brush like this and just dip it in any dark eyeshadow that you have, like a dark brown shadow, and just stamp it along the top and kind of soften the flick a little bit. So this will still keep the same effect, but it'll give it a little bit of a softer feel. So I'm just going to take it to both ends. You can see how this side looks a little bit softer than this side already. And don't worry if you have a little mess up. Just take a clean brush, go along the bottom, and just lightly buff it out. There you go. And next you're just going to take any mascara that you like and give your lashes a light coat. So that's eyes done for now, and let's move on to the face. So now that we're doing the face, since we did our prep earlier and you did a good layer of moisturizer, your skin should be feeling pretty supple. If your skin feels a little bit dry, don't be afraid to take a little bit of a hydrating serum, and you can just put it extra on top. So I'm just gonna do 2 extra little drips and just massage that into my cheeks just to make sure that it brings a little bit more plumpness back into my cheeks. And you can see that I do have lots of redness and hyperpigmentation, and we're just going to give ourselves a light to medium coverage, and we're just going to cover that. So I'm going to use the same base product I was using earlier for my eyes on my face. So it's just the Sephora Best Skin Ever. I use a brush. You can also use your fingers, a sponge, whatever you feel comfortable using. If you only have a super full coverage foundation, don't be afraid to mix your foundation with a little bit of moisturizer to give it a little bit more luminosity and to sheer it out. And if you only have super light coverage foundations, if you warm it up between your fingers, it will become a little bit more tacky and therefore giving you a little bit more coverage for your skin. So I'm just going to do both sides. I like to start in the middle of my face and move outwards, and I'm just going to quickly blend that out. Just going to take a tiny bit more for my forehead. And a little bit extra right here. I always like to go over my ears a little tiny bit, just to make sure that they're not super red. And you can see that I have hyperpigmentation scars on my forehead, but we're going to cover that up with a little bit of concealer, so don't worry. Okay, so this looks pretty good. You can always add powder later, so I like to have a lot of luminosity in the skin prior to. So now I'm going to go in with a concealer. I like to use the NARS Soft Matte Concealer, but any concealer will do. Just conceal as you feel needed. I'm going to do a little bit under my eyes. If you look down, you can kind of see where your darkness is. And same goes for my blemishes. So we're just going to do that quickly. Okay, that's done. I like to take a makeup sponge and just go over everything just to make sure it's super blended and press it into the skin. And as you go, you may notice things that you want to blend out more. So like I can see my eyeshadow here, it has a little bit of a separation, and because we're going for a super soft and romantic feel, we don't want a huge separation. So I'm just going to quickly blend my base makeup, but I'm going to go in with my blending brush that I was using earlier and just pull it out a little bit, just to give it a bit more of a seamless look to the rest of the face. Found a little tiny blemish right here, so I'm just going to quickly cover that up. And after you feel like your face is well blended, you can powder your under eyes just to make sure that nothing creases. So I just take a little brush like this and just a tiny bit of powder, just press. Okay, so for this look, even though it's something super soft and romantic, we can do a little tiny bit of a contour. So I'm going to take a cream contour. This is Patrick Ta for face and She Sculpted, and it comes with a cream and powder. So I'm just going to take the cream and do a really light sculpt on my cheek just to give my cheek a little bit more definition, because after your base makeup, you kind of just look one tone. So to give yourself a little bit more shape, I'm just going to take a contour color. So use a color that's a couple shades darker than your natural skin tone. Whatever contour color you feel like suits you best, please use that. So you want to go from the top of your ear to the corner of your mouth and not too far into the cheek. So I just like to press, assess, and then blend it up. And don't worry if you feel like you put too much. So this looks super harsh, but don't worry, once we blend it out, I'll show you how to fix any little mistake that you make. So I take my sponge that I was using earlier, and this will absorb any excess product. And what we can also do is use our brush that we were applying our base makeup with and just go over that like this. So you can see I have a little bit more definition. And let's do this side. And that's that. Do a little bit on the forehead, just around my temples. And just pull the excess product on my jaw and a little bit behind my ear. That's all. So next is blush. So you have a couple options for blush, but also please use what you think suits your skin tone best. So what I'm going to be using is the Kat Von D. This is in the shade Honeysuckle. This is just a super neutral pink shade. It looks a little bit different on camera. It looks a little lighter, but this is a super neutral shade for my cheeks. So use something that suits your skin tone, whatever neutral blush you have, that's going to be used. So I'm just going to take a blush brush. I'm just going to dab into the blush. So depending on your face shape, your blush placement is just a little bit different. If you want to define your cheeks a little bit more, you put the blush, in this general region. If you find that your cheeks are a little bit hollow, you want to make them a little bit look a little bit fuller, you can put it in this region. If you want to highlight your cheekbones and the apples of your cheeks, just swipe it in this general region. So what I'm going to do is do it along my contour line just to marry the two together. So start on this side. So you can see it gives my cheek a lift. So I'm just going to do the other side. And again, if you feel like you apply too much blush, don't worry. You can go over it later with a clean brush or your fingers just to dab any excess. But because this is a super romantic and soft look, I don't mind that it's a little bit heavier on the blush because it's a super neutral colored blush. So I'm just taking a clean brush here. And if you feel like you really messed it up, you can take a little bit of your translucent powder, any face powder, even with a little bit of coverage, and just dab it with your brush. Oops. And just press it over top, and that'll mute the color down a little bit and also help you diffuse the edges. So I really like to take my blush a little bit across my nose right here. It just gives it a little bit of a sun-kissed look. And also on your forehead, you can do that. A little bit on your chin. So you can see that it's just super diffused. We don't have a harsh contour, but it gives us a little bit of definition in the face. And we don't have a harsh contour along the bottom, but just a little bit of definition. Now we're going to take our highlight that we were using on the mobile lid. So this is the one that I was using. You just want to take a little bit, tap off any excess, don't use too much. You can also use your finger, but I'm using a brush, and just put a little tiny bit in your inner tear duct. You can see that it brightens up the eyes a lot, and it just makes you look really awake. And it just ties in the whole really soft, ethereal, romantic, feminine feel. So what we're going to do now is you're going to take a brown shadow. So I'm going to use this middle one here. Any neutral brown shadow will do. Even if you use the one that you put all over your crease, that'll be fine. And we're just going to sweep that along our bottom lash line, and you're just going to connect it right to the tip of your eyeliner that you buffed or you elongated your eyes with earlier. So I'm just going to go in with that. So now that we're close to being done, we're just going to move on to the lips. I'm just going to use a blush shade as my neutral lip shade. And since we have already hydrated our lips, if you feel like you need to hydrate them a little more, you can do that. I'm just going to take my finger and this cream blush color and just dab that in the middle of my lips. Again, find a tone that is neutral for you and don't highlight your lip shape too much. We are going for just kind of a lip stain type of feel. And I'm just going to take the brush I used for concealer just to clean up a little bit around the edges. And I'm gonna add a little bit more concealer on this spot. And if you feel like you need to powder your T-zone at any point, please do that. You don't want to be overly shiny. You don't really need to powder your cheeks if they're not overly shiny. We kind of want the skin to still look healthy and dewy, and you can see the inner corners look bright and healthy. So I'm just going to do a little bit of powder in my T-zone. Just on the slit right here. And now we're going to set the face. So you just want to make sure that you hold it a little bit far away. This is going to look a little funny, and you just want to mist your face. And once that's dry, your makeup should be set. So I just took my hair out of the clips and my face is a little bit more dry. You can see that it kind of brought shine back in some places. So if you feel like after your setting spray you need to powder a little bit, you can go ahead and do that. Again, don't over powder, and we can always add more powder when you get to the show. So don't worry about that. I love how everything turned out. I hope you did too. I hope you learned a couple of my tips and tricks, and have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you soon.